This
Okay.
conference will now be recorded.
Okay. There can be two situations when you sell a non-current asset. You can have a gain or loss. In this case, we had a loss of 45,000. That means that the land cost 100 is gone, but we got to subtract the loss from the 100 to come up with the amount of cash, which is 55,000. So just think about that for a few minutes.
Professor, I have a question regarding that.
Yes,
So does that mean that land on the balance sheet is always the cost of the land and not how much you bought it?
correct. It's the cost. All of these assets are, it's the cost is on. It's a balance sheet. And what the balance sheet is showing is that you had land, now it's gone.
Okay.
How much money
But
did you get for the land? If we had a loss on the sale of that land of 45,000, then we only got 55,000 for the land. Okay?
okay.
So you have a gain, you can have a loss. Let's see what 810. 810 doesn't have a gain or a loss, so we'll skip it. Hope it was sent in. 811 doesn't have a gain or a loss either. 812 doesn't have a gain or a loss. 813 doesn't have a gain or a loss. So now I guess we're ready for 814. So those others, any question on the others? You didn't have gains or losses. You had to calculate the depreciation. Did any of you all have any problems with the others in terms of balancing out?
I did, Ashton.
Which one did you have?
I had 813, and it was more so for mine. We had a net income and not a net loss. And so I think this is the problem I may have had last week, but I didn't see the video on YouTube for the last class. When you have a net income and not a net loss, how do you factor that in when it comes to the dividends, finding the dividends?
We still go through the statement of retained earnings. So the beginning balance was our beginning balance and retained earnings.
300,000.
So it's 300,000.
Mm-hmm.
Then if we were then going to that's not quite on. We need the net income next, okay?
Okay.
Net income. And the net income was how much? 1,700,000.
Yes.
Okay, so let me see if I can get that over here. So that means how much do we have available at this point to pay for dividends?
2 million.
Okay, you've got 2 million.
Okay.
Our balance at this point is $2 million. Now, the next thing we need to know is, in general, the dividend. But that's always what? Question mark.
Mhm.
So what's the dividend going to be? So we then go down to the ending balance. Let me just move all of these down. So what is the ending balance in retained earnings?
It is 400,000.
Okay, so that's 400,000. So if you had two million in retained earnings prior to dividends, and then your ending balance is 400,000. So I need to get a zero out of here. Then what must the dividend be?
1,600,000.
1,600,000.
Okay. For some reason, it made me doubt the amount because it was so large. But okay.
So whatever the number is, you just have to go in there. It isn't usually large, but that's what the calculation shows.
Okay.
Can you balance your problem now?
Let me see.
So check it and see. If not, we'll come back to it. Okay, let's move to 814. 814 was written by a former student. He tutors and there now at times. So he says, suppose we had a company with a sales 800,000, cost of goods sold 500, gross profit 300, selling operating expenses 213, operating income 87. We had a gain on the sale of investing and we had a loss on the sale of equipment. So we have both of those items in this problem. Income before taxes, income taxes, net income 63,000. So that is the problem. And then we go to the balance sheet. It has a number of other things in here. That, okay. So, is everybody to see this now?
Yes,
Any
sir.
questions? So, what's the first thing we're going to do with this problem?
We're gonna determine the net income.
I don't think that's the first thing.
The change in cash flow.
We're going to show the change in cash. And if we go to show that change in cash, what was the cash change?
6,000.
What was the change? What was change in cash?
$6,000.
Did it go up or go down?
It
Decrease.
went down.
Okay, so it went down. So when we get ready, let's see if we can find these statement of cash flows. Okay, I forgot to go back into.
Let's go.
Okay, so let me see if I can find it on my desktop.
Klaus' opinion is dripping. Let me go Rich. That can fix it.
If you're not speaking, turn your mic off. One, thank you. Okay, so they start the problem and their beginning balance is 15, ending. So that's the answer. So no matter how much you have, no matter how many accounts, at the end of the day, it's got to be $6,000 for the loss. Are there any questions on that? So what's the next thing we're going to do?
That's me, Professor. Next, we're gonna do the cash flow from investments.
No, we're going to, not what we said we'd do.
We're going to check for a net income or a net loss.
Right. And in this case, it have what? A net income. So we're going to come in here and put the net income right here. Okay. So if there's a loss, it'd be over here. It's income, so it's here. Any questions? Then we want to pick up our depreciation typically. So they didn't tell us in depreciation here, but we know we can do what? Go to the accumulated depreciation account. 85 went to 93. And so depreciation must have been what? About $8,000.
8,000.
8,000. So you're doing the same thing. You got more accounts. Then we needed to get the dividends.
If you look to the
Well,
right, Dr. Boyd, you'll see that our dividends.
calculation. Can everybody else calculate these dividends?
Yes, sir.
Ashley, can you calculate the dividend?
Yes. Beginning
How
balance
much
plus
is it?
net.
Mm-hmm. So the beginning was what? 74? So that was to the side somewhere?
74,000, yes.
Okay. Then we add the net income to it. I think they have it here on the problem. So on the problem, right in here, they show this calculation. Beginning retained earnings plus net income. The ending was 107. So we were solving for the 30,000. Are there any questions in terms of what we were doing? And so you see they have the dividend in now. So they got in the changing cash. They got the net income in. They got the depreciation in, and then they have the dividend. So a lot of time you want to go with that so that you can get some things in. Then let's begin to look at these other assets. So the receivables go down by 100,000. Is that what they did? And the
Yes, sir.
accrued liability, 12,000 increase. So most of that standard. Let me go to the problem. And they had a gain of 7,000 and a loss of 4,000. So it would appear to me that this number should be $7,000 and 3,000 should be here. So for team 8 and team 5, how did you all come up with 14,000 here?
Tried to use the problem that I think that's where, because we were off by 10,000.
Oh, that will get you off, because that's 11 of it. So you should have put here, if you got a gain on an asset, which is what the problem said. It said the gain was 7,000. You've got to come in here and put 7,000. If it said the loss on another asset was 4,000, you got to come in here and put that 4,000. Okay.
So when they talk about the actual, you bought it for this and that, so you totally disregard that. It's just what your gain and what your loss is. Because it would,
Yeah,
with the
you compare that to the cost. So let's just look at them separately. You have to treat them separately. They say gain on the sale of investing was 7,000. Okay. So when we go to the balance sheet, the investments were 19,000, and now they're 16. So that means then that we sold $3,000 in investments.
so that
Okay.
doesn't go in part part two, the
Yeah.
proceeds from investments. So
Right.
that's where the 7,000 was. Where we got the 14 from the equipment was, we sold the equipment for 20, that cost us 40, and it had accumulated depreciation. That's what kind of threw us off, I think.
Okay. But let's just get the investments first. If your investments went from 19 to 16, so you sold 3,000 of your investments. Your gain was 7,000, and so therefore, this investment amount should be 10,000.
Oh,
So it's
10,000.
the same of what we did before. Okay. So that's what the investment should look like. Now, let's go back to the problem on this depreciable equipment. They sold some equipment for 20,000. Okay, so they tell you they sold it for 20,000. Okay, so this number needs to be $20,000. Okay, because they told you they sold it for 20, had a cost of 40, in which there was accumulated depreciation of 16, and that's all fine and good. And then it's telling you in this, so it kind of told you what the numbers were. It tells you, so it made it simpler, but I guess you would think it'd be that way, but it tells you that so long-term investment 10,000. So 10,000 has to be here. And then it sold the equipment at wait a minute, where's my long, this is the equipment here. And then where's that investment information? Oh, investment sold it for 10,000. So it's telling you what those numbers are. So you needed 10,000 and 20,000 in here. Okay?
And where?
Sold equipment for 20,000. So sold some equipment for 20,000. This number needs to be 20,000. Then it sold the long-term investment for 10. This needs to be 10. So the 10 and 20 needs to be there. The loss is 4 here, and the gain is 7 here. Okay? So a lot of information was put in there, but they actually answered it for you. Now, how much equipment did we buy? Let's see, what happened to the equipment? The other should be pretty straightforward. Property, planning, equipment went from 470 to 610. So how much did they buy?
$140,000.
Yeah. They went from 470 to 610. So how much does that change? 470 to 610 is what?
260.
Okay.
Oh,
So
there we are.
260 was the change. But that was a net change, what my information is. They sold 20,000 worth. So if the net change is 260 and you sold 20, then it's going to be plus 20. So this number should be over here. New equipment should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 280. So this is just a thought one for you to work with. So put those changes in, everything else should be the same, and we should be okay. Let's turn to assignments quickly. Not quickly. First new thing you see is an example of a cash flow research paper. And so this student wanted an A, these students. So this is their cash flow research paper. They show the income, operating activities. So they just pull these things out. And this student was initially thinking of going to work with GE until he did this analysis. And once he did the analysis, and he went the other way, 2014, 2015, 2016, he saw the trend went from operating amounts here and here to a minus 244,000. So he knew right away that with this kind of a trend, and if it kept going that way and this number was negative, he didn't want to work for them. So that was his paper. And he had planned to work for GE all his life, so it kind of hurt him a whole lot. So he just did a lot of extra writing. You just do three, all you need is to talk about the company, pull up 3 years worth of these, and then do some discussion in terms of I'd invest $1 million or I wouldn't invest $1 million. But he had planned to work for this company, and so he did a lot more for it. So you don't have to have that much. And this is an Exxon Mobil one where a person did a lot more. But not quite. So 3 pages, so that's an example of that. Okay. Okay. Now let's look at this quiz I'm gonna give these people on next class period since their camera's not on. I need to give them a quiz, right?
Actually, Dr. Boyd, I believe with all the technical difficulties that we've had, I believe everybody should get an A.
You think they should get an A?
Yeah,
I do,
I'm
sir.
with you, Michael. I'm with you, Michael.
Wholeheartedly agree.
I definitely agree.
Is everybody here?
Yes.
What about the
Yes,
people not
sir.
here?
Yes, sir.
Group 3 here.
What if Maya Pearson is not here?
No, I'm here, Professor Boyd. I'm right here.
Yeah,
Just
my whole
checking.
group here.
My whole
Go
group
ahead.
here, sir.
Group 5's here.
Group 4 is too.
Well, if the groups are here, we'll look at that. Okay. You still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's look at your study problem. I can get this out. Yes, save it. In your study problem, and everybody's been assigned study problems, you have January 1st account balances, and you have December 31st account balances. You see these numbers? You see, so these are trial balances, okay? Now, well, they are account balances now. I take it back. They are account balances in alphabetical order. So you have these account balances in alphabetical order. You've got to come over here and create the trial balances, income statement, statement of retained earnings, and then the balance sheet. So in the past, I gave you the income statement. You got to make them yourself. Then once you got the income statement and your statement of retained earnings and your balance sheet, the next thing you do is do the statement of cash flow. So this is attempting to pull everything together. Let's go back here again. You have the balances on January 1st and December 31st. Let's look at what we're going to do with these balances. For the cash on January 1st is 200,000. So I'm going to go to over here. I'm going to put cash in. I'm going to put 200,000. Okay. That's my beginning cash. Go back over here again. Ending cash is 400,000. Okay. So anything in the beginning balances, these are going to be permanent accounts. So everything here goes on the balance sheet. You don't have to do anything with these numbers, but put them in the right locations on the balance sheet. They're permanent accounts. You will use those to come up with the balance sheet, the beginning balance sheet. Now, for these numbers, you got to come in here because you got all kinds of numbers, revenues and expenses. You got to put those numbers, assets to expenses. And then, as you know, you go from the bottom of that statement, sales on down. So you got to get your accounts in order and do an income statement. Then you do a statement of retained earnings, and then you do a balance sheet. Are there any questions? Are there any questions?
I have a question. When is this gonna be due?
When is a good time for it to be due?
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Well, that was my plan, and if everybody had their cameras on, but see, some people don't have cameras on, so they're not getting with the plan. That's the way it is, Some people just mess stuff up for everybody else.
What you mean messed up everybody else?
Take it out on them.
Well, when the Republicans make a
Yeah.
decision to get rid of Social Security, it affects everybody.
I thought you said those of us who got our cameras on not gonna have to take the test, and
That's
those who
true.
don't have to take it.
Okay. So what we're going to do is this. This is going to be due on Tuesday. And for those you got your cameras on, you'll have a free day on Thursday to work on this. For those who can't get the cameras on, then I'll get you a quiz on Thursday. But the other folks with their cameras on, they won't have to be in the class. So just the people without cameras on, you all be in the class on Thursday taking a quiz. Does that sound fair? Everybody say that sounds fair.
Sound fair to me.
So as you work with this problem, it's going to pull a lot of things together. And like I say, managerial accounting assumes you can just pull these things together. So if need be, we'll have a session on Thursday if you got questions. So if you need a session, you're working on this. But what I wanted to do is to have the problem there so that, every team, be no excuse why the team couldn't get together and work it. Okay, because you got class time to work it. So no work time should be a problem.
Mr. Boyd, is this gonna be the same way we did the last two cash flow statement problems, or are we gonna turn this in as a team with the team leader?
That's correct. Turn it as a team with the team leader. You all do a
Roger that.
pretty good job with that in terms of working as a team. I'll give you all that. They students today, they were working on this, and everybody's sending their own homework.
Hey, Dr. Boyd, one other question. So the paper that's going to be due on the 14th, correct? So on Tuesday as well?
Yes, that's on Tuesday as well. Now that paper is sort of some gimme, all you have to do is go Google your company. You ask, they'll give you the statements. You don't have to have the detail. You can just have the totals in each of those areas. Operations, investing and financing, and you make your decision. That's to get you used to doing that. That's the problem people have. They never went and worked with the cash flow statement. So probably 75% of the financial advisors, accountants and lawyers have never really worked with cash flow statements. So that's why, had all the problems of FTX and other companies, because they never work with these statements. And so you all be able to work with that. Any other questions? Okay, so I want you to start now, pull up the problem and start working. Pull up the problem and start working now. And that way, if anything comes up, you can, so the problems are there, thanks 2 or 3 to a team. And if need be, teams can sort of, get together a little bit in terms of, their issues. But once again, you got the beginning balances. You're going to use these numbers to create a balance sheet for the beginning of the year. These are the end of the year numbers, which includes the assets, the liabilities, and the expenses for this year. So you got to separate those between the ones that are going to go on the balance sheet and the ones that go on the income statement. The ones on the balance sheet will be up top. The income statements will be down here low. Then you go over here and create an income statement of retained earnings, so you have your dividends done. And then you got to do the end of the year balance sheet. Now, the balance sheets do need to balance. Is that kind of understandable?
Yes.
Your balance sheet must balance. So it should be a good exercise, to try to pull everybody up to where we need to be, going forward, because we have to do these things, but we're going to put the managerial information with it. So begin work for the next, 10 more minutes and tell me what you're seeing. And so what you want to start on is the beginning of the year balance sheet and get your beginning of the year balance sheet done. So let's try to go and get the beginning of the year balance sheet done first. So let's try to get that done today. Hey. So see if you can get the beginning of the balance sheet done. You got to count. So you're not making journal entries, but you are now coming up with the beginning of the year balance sheet. So I'll be back in 10 minutes to check to see where we are.
Dr. Lloyd?